OXFIT.RADIO, fit as an ox, fit at any age. Hello, I'm your host, Rashid Westcott. I'll be exploring the positive impact of exercise and healthy living on helping both young and old achieve a long and active life. Did you know that aging can be slowed down and even reversed with exercise? And many health ailments can also be reduced or even prevented as well. Come join me as we explore these topics and more with leading experts in the field of exercise, wellness, and nutrition. Please remember to always consult your personal physician before beginning any exercise or nutritional program. In this three-part conversation with Qigong expert Ramel Rones, we'll explore the health benefits of Qigong and Tai Chi. Ramel Rones is a mind-body consultant at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Tufts Medical Center, and Massachusetts General Hospital. He is also a clinical researcher at Tufts Medical Center and Mass General Hospital. Mr. Rones holds several gold medals in both Kung Fu and Tai Chi in the U.S. and China. He is author of several best-selling books on Tai Chi and is published in numerous medical journals, including the New England Journal of Medicine and the British Medical Journal. Qigong and Health, Part 1. Thank you for joining us, Rami. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became interested, how you started in martial arts, and what led you to a career in focusing on Tai Chi and Qigong?
When I was 15, I grew up in Jerusalem, in Israel. I'm Israeli, and then when I was 15, I was one of the top athletes in various sports, maybe the 5K, jumping high, the high jump. So it wasn't that I wasn't athletic, excellent or basketball, but I started developing skeleton muscular issues in the neck, lower back. And one of the reasons was, I guess, when I look back at it now, that I grew to 6 feet at the age of 13, 14. So it was fast growth. And then I guess the bones and the muscle, and I stayed tight because sports. And that's how I developed the concept that sports and hobbies are not a philosophy like yoga, Tai Chi, and Qigong. It's great and it contributes in a certain level, but the bottom line, if you want to achieve total health, you need something more of a philosophy, which is balance, versus sport focuses on certain lungs, heart, maybe certain groups of muscles, but it's not as efficient as the philosophies. So around 15, that was one of the problems. Another issue I used to have is sinus infections. And then another problem was digestive problems. And then we tried all the best doctors in the country at those, and it was in the 70s. And there was pretty much, everybody said it's psychosomatic, and nobody came with a solution. So we heard of this guy that came from Russia on the border of China, and he did acupuncture, shiatsu, suction cups and moxa and all this and that. And my mom said, if it doesn't hurt, why not try it? We went to him, and it was very weird at first because you're not used to Western doctor. They just put the stethoscope on you. Suddenly he was like, lie here on the floor, bend my knees to my chest, bend my knees to the side, bend my arms up, come from behind. And it was the different diagnostic, and he just try to figure out my skeleton, and he said, well, you grew too quick and you're stiff as a board, even though you're very athletic. You need to free yourself from all this tightness. And he said, within 10 treatment, and I used to come to him once a week, and he would help me kind of stretch. And within 10 times, while me practicing in between, the back problem, neck problem, all disappeared. And I felt much looser and without all those aches and pains. And then he says, regarding your sinus infection and digestive issues, it needs more than what I can offer you. I have a friend that teaches Tai Chi. If you go to him, he will help you with that. So I ended up going to that guy. His name was Tzvi Weisberg, and he came from upstate New York. And he studied in Manhattan with this Chinese master, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, pushing hands and some weapons, not that many. And I started training with him, and it became one of my passionate, most favorite things to do. So it was pretty intense too. We used to train like maybe 2-3 hours every day, 5-6 days a week. It wasn't just me; a bunch of friends of mine joined as well. So it became like kind of both social but training. And we started. He was hardcore. We started the first time I came. He said, "Okay, we'll just sit a little bit," and we sat on our knees. And 45 minutes the first time was a Zen meditation. So we'll train 3-4 hours. We'll sit 30 to 45 minutes in the beginning, 30, 45 minutes at the end, and in between, practice the rest of the stuff. And he always used to tell me, listen, if you're really serious about it, you should really find a real Chinese master that study with the linear and blah, blah, blah. And, 3-4 years later, I got deeply into it with this guy, and then I decided I really like it. I really enjoy it. And no, it wasn't just only for health, because don't forget, I was 16, 17. At that time, Bruce Lee was very popular in the TVs and everywhere. And the whole idea...
I remember well.
Yeah, the whole idea, it wasn't so much the fighting, because I didn't have problems. I was a good street fighter. I was very fast, and I had courage, and I always waited, punched me first, and I went wild. So it wasn't so much the fighting. Yeah, it wasn't so much the fighting. It was more the control, the ability to control when you fight 2, 3, 4 people and not to get hurt and not to hurt them if you choose to hurt them or control them. Mm-hmm. And I knew to get to that level of fighting, I needed to train a lot and with the right person. So I read a book. When I was 18, I read a book. No, I was a little older, probably 20. I read a book by Dr. Jwing-Ming, and I was already getting to be 21. I finished the army, and then I decided right after the army, I did 3 years. I decided to, in '83, I got out of the army, and I decided I really want to pursue it. Bought a ticket, $1,200, suitcase, came here to Boston because he was here. He did his PhD in Purdue University, and then he came here and opened a school on Huntington Avenue in Boston, across from the Y, where Northeastern is. And he had like maybe 20 students. It was 8 months. He opened. I arrived here 8 months after he opened his school, and I came to him, and he said, "Yeah." Well, I said, "I wrote you the letter. I'm going to come study with you." And he said, "I don't have a place for you to live." I said, "Don't worry." I rented an apartment. In Somerville, and I started coming. And with him, it was really intense training. We trained every day from 8 in the morning till 12. I'll go work until 4, from like 1 to 4. Come back, train from 5 to 10, 6 days a week. On Saturdays from 8 to 2 hours break, and from 4 to 6. And I would have trained, and I signed up for everything with him. I studied with him the Kung Fu. I studied White Crane, Long Fist. I studied Tai Chi, swords, staffs, sabers. I studied Qina, which is controlling and joints and tendons and ligaments. I studied with him meditation, Qigong, massage, and I felt like, wow, this is what I want to do. It's like college of the Eastern philosophy, and he was doing a lot of lectures, theory, Qigong, because when I met him, he only wrote one book. The book I read, Kung Fu, it's called Shaolin Kung Fu by Dr. Jwing-Ming, and the reason it was fascinating to me, because it was so ancient and so many old techniques that I never seen anywhere else, like it was a cavity press that the monks used to train, all kind of meditations and really deep stuff that I haven't seen anywhere. So I said, that's the guy I want to study with. So I studied with him for about a year, and then I said, okay, I had to go back to Israel because my visa ran out. I came back to Israel after a year, and on his levels, I was just one stripe, which is like nothing. So I felt really bad that it's only a year. And 8 months later, I ended up back here, and I stayed with him for 35 years, studied with him, became his disciple, one of his top students, traveled all over the world with him, all over the United States, taught all over He has branches in Poland. I taught there, and France. I taught there, and became, very deep into that world of both the internal and external. And around 40 years old, I'm 58 now, a cancer patient came to him and say, I need to go to the hospice, but maybe something can be done. And he looked at him and said, well, work with Rami. And he said, Rami, work with him. And then I started working with this guy, and came on a wheelchair. His wife used to, I said, just come sit in the corner when I teach the classes, and I'll tell you what to do. And he came, and the wife brought him every day to all my classes and just put him in the corner there. And, he lost all his hair from chemo. They gave him a few months to live. And I started telling him what to do, and here and there while I was teaching class. And I don't know, before you know it, he got a little more color. Suddenly he was able to get up and down from the chair. Suddenly he came one day without the chair. And then within a year and a half, 2 years, he became kind of a miracle that he lost it. And instead of going to the hospice, he ended up not going to the hospice or not, And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that this is so powerful. And it became kind of my passion and later he was the first one to get a graph. Before him, they used to give graph versus host separately. And now he was the number 10 at MGH to get both graph and host at the same time. And it was a success. And then he went into remission, and it was unbelievable. He lasted 10, 15 years. And then he passed away from an infection, which I'm stumbling a lot those days, relativity, with a lot of survivors that the immune system is deficient. And then I have at least 10 students that over the last 20 years, 15 years, passed away suddenly from an infection, not necessarily from the disease or the side effect, but just from some the immune system did not react enough, and before you know it, they go to a visit to the doctor, and then it's a few hours. It happens really fast. But in any case, when I met him, John, I just realized, wow, that's my calling. And I was getting older. I had started to have kids. So I realized there is no money in the martial world. It's great, and it's very rewarding in many ways. But I started working with first injuries. I tried to get to Dana-Farber, and eventually they hired me there to work. Dana-Farber is a cancer institute in Boston. So at first I was doing classes in different rooms, and they would put posters and tell patients. It was for patients, family, and caregivers. And so as more and more I got into the health world, I realized how powerful is this knowledge, how many tools there are, the freeing your skeleton from being a prisoner of the soft tissue by stretching, the deep breathing, the balance between strength and flexibility, posture, alignment, the mindfulness of meditation, focusing on the energetic system, strengthening the energetic system, evoking the spirit. So, and that is also the 5 building blocks of Qigong. So it's body, breath, mind, energy, and spirit. And you push all 5 at the same time. So if you need to first free your skeleton from being a prisoner of the soft tissue, so it takes a lot of stretching. If you look at my YouTube channels and my YouTube channel, you can see a lot of stretching.
Yeah, Rami, can you explain a little bit about that when you say prisoner of the soft tissue? What do you mean by that?
So when we have the skeleton, which is the bones, and then we have the soft tissue, all the soft tissue, which is skin, fascia, muscle, tendons, ligaments. And the soft tissue, what happened to me, for example, as a teenager, my skeleton grew to 6 feet, and my soft tissue didn't grow as much. So now my skeleton became a prisoner of the soft tissue. It happens the same with modernization, with not just growth. We sit all day in chairs, our spine is bent, we collapse, we don't stretch our hips, we don't squat down like we used to and go to the bathroom, or the less physical we are, the more the soft tissue shrinks. Not only that, it shrinks when it's cold, it shrinks when we experience negative emotions, it shrinks from injuries, surgery, aging, you name it, it shrinks. Posture, the biggest one is posture, because we sit all day with bad posture and a lack of movement. You don't use it, you lose it. So, when you're young, you're more flexible, especially women. And then as you get older, you get stiffer and harder and older, and there's no need for it, really, what I realized when I stumbled into those Chinese masters that do the Qigong and the Tai Chi. And when I got to Boston, I also realized that I need yoga, because yoga was a good balance to the Kung Fu and the Tai Chi. The Chinese, or at least that I stumbled into, they don't emphasize as much the stretching as yoga. So I went to Cambridge once a week, and I started doing yoga with Patricia Walden, BKS Iyengar yoga, and that really allowed me to, with the Kung Fu and the fighting, not to get injured as much as my classmates. So I kept telling people the flexibility is the key to, now I even call it the fountain of youth. So the skeleton gets captured by the soft tissue, but the good news is that we can open it and free ourselves from being a prisoner of the soft tissue with a very calculated stretching. What's the word? Stretching like method,
and a stretching routine.
A routine. That's so thank you. A stretching routine that use props and tools, that use the principle of 80% effort, that uses that covers in every muscle and area in the body, from the bottom up or top down. And that's also my next book. I wrote 2 books, Sunrise and Sunset Tai Chi, but my next book is called Body Markers, and I have 12 markers that allows you to measure each body marker and see what it's designed and see where you're at, and then I tell you what it's designed to do, and then and I give you a method to improve. For example, when you put your leg backward and your heel touches your butt, that's 180 degrees from so when the leg is straight, it's 0, and when you put it touch your butt, you get a 10. So it's from 0 to 10, and then if you put your leg on a chair behind you, that's 90 degrees, so that's a 5. So you measure yourself, and then I have 12 of them. I won't get into it right now, but that's the principle. And then most people, you'll be surprised, they don't necessarily can put their heel right to touch their butt. So wherever their heel is at, if it's on a chair, 90 degrees, their soft tissue is restricting the movement, and their skeleton is captured by the soft tissue. But over practice and time, your heel will touch your butt, your knees pointing straight down to the floor, and you can lean backward even, and now you have a 10, and your quads are open to the maximum. You're preventing injury, you're preventing falls. So a lot of elements comes byproduct from this freedom. So, but the freedom is just one of the building blocks of Qigong and Tai Chi. The second block is the breath, the breath. So the breath is you. The breath in my book now is the flying. It makes the carpet into a magic flying carpet. The oxygen. First of all, we're all shallow breathers. We just sit there, and I show my students. Even when I walk pretty briskly, fast, I don't need to take deep breath unless you start running. So we're shallow breathers. Again, we don't use it. You lose it. Look at the swimmers. Their lungs are 3 times bigger than the average. People mostly can take an inhalation 5 to 8 seconds and out 5 to 8 seconds. Not many people can hold their breath like a minute 45, but that should be, people that have really good lungs are wind instruments, people that play on wind instruments. And that's actually people that have the highest life expectancy. So there's a whole philosophy of breathing deep again, recognizing the fact that we're shallow breathers, start to force yourself to breathe in throughout the day deeper. So what you do, you stop throughout the day, and maybe every hour, maybe every 3 hours, you put the timer on 3 minutes, and you just take nice deep breath through the nose, and you start to develop your lungs from the inside out. So one way of developing the lungs is doing cardio. But as we get older, cardio is not the best for our bones, for our knees, for our hips. So the next thing is this deep breathing method. In yoga, it's called pranayama. In Qigong, sometimes people call it 84 points. So eventually, not only that you breathe deep, you also breathe deep to different parts of the lungs. And that's where all the Qigong and the Tai Chi movement come in. So you're doing all those movements really slow. And then when you do those movements slow, you create different shapes with your lungs, and you bring air to different parts of your lungs, and you stimulate different lung cells. So that's the second building blocks of the philosophies, Tai Chi and Qigong. So now when you do a movement, while you free your skeleton from being a prisoner of the soft tissue, you also focus deep breathing, and then the third part is the mind. So that's why in Qigong and Tai Chi you don't have TV screens or radios, music, as much as in Western exercise, because the mind, the third building block, is very important. The mind focuses, it's like the conductor, the mind, or the general. The mind focuses on the breath, monitor the breath. The mind focuses where the breath goes. The mind focuses on alignment. The mind focuses on the balance between strength and flexibility when you're in the posture. The mind focuses on what's the 80%, what's 70%, which, where should I be with the stretch? Because if your heels doesn't get to your butt, going back to that stretch we said, the quad stretch, which I call the heron, and if you force it, you're going to hurt your knees. You're going to hurt something. But if you go gradually, week by week, and you move the heel up and you integrate the deep breathing and integrate the mind to relax the muscles and experience the stretch, now you have a better chance to succeed. So now you have body, breath, mind. The fourth building block is the energetic world, the energetic system. And that's a little bit different than yoga. So Tai Chi and Qigong work with 12 meridian, 8 extraordinary vessels. So the meridian are rivers that run from the organs to your fingers. The vessels are reservoirs that hold the energy. And you have centers like energy center, like the lower energy center, the upper energy center, 4 gates, and on and on. And then you start putting the mind. So let's say now I stretch the quad stretch, we said, into the heel back and up. And then I focus my breathing. My mind monitor the alignment, the stretch, the deep breathing. But now also I move my mind into a visualization of the lower energy center. And that's the lower energy center is the first visualization that usually you start to practice in the Eastern philosophy. And then you put your mind in the lower energy center, which also not only important for health, because when you put your mind there, you develop that energy center. And that, of course, if you believe there is an energetic system. It's the same energetic system that the acupuncturists use. It's the same energetic system that Shiatsu talks about. So it's the same 12 rivers and 8 extraordinary reservoirs. And you start developing this system. So in some ways, when you do Tai Chi and you move from side to side with those moves, you also, small groups of muscle tense and relax and compress on the energetic, on the channels. And I call Tai Chi also acupuncture and movement. So this energetic system, not only that is affected by the movement of the muscles and the breath, because when you breathe in deeper, you can change the energy from fire to water. And we're more fiery by nature, so we want to cool down. So then when you put your mind in this energetic system, you upgrade it, you strengthen it. So the theory is that we all are born with a battery, a certain battery, which is that lower energy center. Some people have a stronger battery by nature. You can see some people, even that it's winter, they go out with shorts, or the kids. I have 4 kids, until now, they're still, the oldest is 21. They still go out with a T-shirt and a short when it's 25 or 20 degrees out there. So they have stronger batteries, either when you're younger, or some people, even when they're older, they have stronger batteries. It doesn't matter the battery, that's what you're given. metaphorically speaking, think about it of a AAA battery, and your goal is to make this battery into a car battery, strong and powerful. So how do you do that? You put your mind in that lower energy center, you visualize it, and you keep strengthening it through that, through the breathing, through the movement. There's also something called abdominal breathing. You move the abdominal muscles in on inhalation, out on the exhalation. That's another mechanism that builds energy. And if you put your mind in the lower energy center, all that energy is led into that center, and that center becomes strong. But at the same time, even if you don't believe in the energy system, your abdominal movement massages your internal organs. It creates flow and move the stagnation, massages all your digestive system. So there's also benefit on health. But on a martial level, for example, after years of doing the abdominal breathing in and out with every breath, your abdomen becomes so strong and powerful, and it's stronger than even sit-ups. Because I do my abdominal breathing for years now, but I don't do sit-ups. But I can just pump 50, 60 sit-ups without practicing, and I contribute that to the abdominal breathing that I do for day after day. So that's
interesting.
That's the fourth element, the fourth building block.
Yeah.
And the last and not least is the spirit. So when you that's why, for example, when you put your leg back, that stretch that I'm talking about, the quad, I call it the heron. So it's not enough to just do physical, breath, mental on the energetic system. That's all. You still at a certain level. You want to bring it boosted to the next level of energy, the next level of being. You have to evoke your spirit while you're in the postures. So, for example, when you put your leg back like this, if you close your eyes and you visualize that you're a heron, that evokes the spirit. And there are actually studies nowadays that show when you evoke the spirit, a certain part of the brain lights up, and that creates a whole chain of positive hormone production because it stimulates the pituitary gland. So evoking the spirit more and more, we see actually affects a lot of our system, including the hormone system. So instead of adrenaline, you start to release serotonin and endorphin. So that's why sometimes you go to church or temple or the mosque or wherever you go, or you're having a spiritual experience, and you come out of it and you're like, wow, I feel so good and so relaxed. And so why? Because you evoke the spirit. So and actually some people in the Qigong they like that part so much that they only do the spiritual part of Qigong. So now we have the 5 building blocks, but within Qigong there's 4 schools of Qigong. So the first school of Qigong is health and martial arts. So Tai Chi belongs to the health and martial arts school of Qigong. The second school of Qigong is Confucius. So Confucius, and it's not by this exact order. The third one is medicine, and the fourth one is the priests, the monks. And those 4 schools of Qigong, different people sometimes choose different schools. So if you're just doing the meditation and evoking the spirit and working with some energy, more Tibetan style, you're doing the school of the religious Qigong. If you're doing more Qigong for the purpose of nourishing the brain and bringing more energy to the brain, you're like the philosopher Lao Tzu and other philosophers. So that's the Confucius Qigong. But if you're doing medical Qigong, that's more specifically for medical reasons. And then if you're doing health and martial art, that's health. Of course, if you want to be a good martial artist, health is a given. That's the first step. So that's why the health and martial art, they do a lot of the health, but they also do a lot of the martial art Qigong. And Tai Chi, so people say, what is the difference between Qigong and Tai Chi? So Qigong is Tai Chi, but Tai Chi is not necessarily Qigong. So, and that's going to what I just said. There's the 4 schools of Qigong. Tai Chi only is in one of them, in the health and martial art. So the other 3, you don't see the Tai Chi movement. In medical Qigong, the movement are not martial. They're like you move the hands up into the heaven to create and one into the earth to create pressure in the liver and the spleen and the kidney. So if you want to treat the organs, there's Qigong movements in medical Qigong, but if you want to that are not martial. But if you want to treat the liver in the health and martial art Qigong, you'll do movement that at the same time, let's say it's called push the tablets. You push one hand forward like a Shotokan hit and one elbow backwards, like you hit somebody with your elbow, and that's still, and you twist, so you still affect the liver and the spleen and the kidney, but now you're performing movements that are more martial. So that's you're still going to do health in both, but one will have movements that are more martial. Versus if you're in the spiritual world of Qigong, you may just do meditations and scanning and using the spirit and the brain to help whatever issue you're dealing with.